Hey y'all, welcome back to the RV renovation series for day 19. Today we're going to be strictly focusing on getting these bathroom tiles up. So these tiles are actually called Palisade tiles. I do have them linked on my Amazon storefront. That's actually where I bought mine from. You can also buy them at Lowe's. They're not really that much more expensive on the Lowe's website, but it's kind of hit or miss if they actually have them in stock because they're pretty popular. Now my first step is going to be to cut these inside corner trim pieces. I'm just basically just measured however tall I needed it, and I'm cutting them with my table saw. I do highly suggest to buy this trim kit. It makes it look a lot cleaner and a lot smoother, and it is color matched to the marble tiles. Now you can actually buy this kit in individual pieces. I did not. I bought it as a whole kit because I am going to end up using all of these pieces. I do have the whole kit linked on my Amazon storefront as well if you want to check those out. They also do sell the individual pieces at Lowe's. They don't sell the kit at Lowe's, just the individual pieces, and I think they're like 35 bucks a piece. So definitely look into that kit. So after they're cut, I'm going to go ahead and get some silicone or silicone. People always make fun of me for the way I say silicone. And this is just a bathroom grade silicone, and I'm putting it basically behind this trim piece because I want it to be completely waterproof on these corners. And for those of you who haven't been following my RV renovation series, you'll notice that this is kind of, it's like plastic type of material that I installed beforehand because I want this to be completely waterproof before I put the tiles on. The tiles are 100% waterproof, but I want that extra layer of protection. So that's why this shower is going to be waterproof before I put the tiles on. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Never put this on bare walls. So right there, I went ahead and put silicone behind that other trim piece, and I'm kind of just pressing it in place to make sure that it's all the way seated in that corner. If it's not, it's going to kind of make the wall look a little weird, so I just want to make sure it's properly seated in that 90-degree corner. So next I have a full piece that I've kind of just set in place right there, and I'm measuring how big I want to basically make that first piece. Before I make a mess, I go ahead and get a scrap piece of flooring. I have that down so I don't get construction adhesive all over my brand new tub or my shower pan, just because I don't want to have to clean it. It's one thing that I don't have to do later if I can not make a mess. So how I adhere these to the wall is basically get a ridiculous amount of construction adhesive and I put it on the back of the tile. And then I have this little tiny, it's like a square notch trowel, like it's really tiny. And I use that to kind of spread out the construction adhesive and make it relatively even and smooth on the tile itself. I don't want to glob this up on there because if all of the construction adhesive is in the same spot, it won't really do me much good. I want full adhesion to this wall. So the first layer, the first two tiles are obviously going to be the most difficult, just deciding how you want your design. And then I just alternate my tiles from left to right. So I started my full tile on the left. Now on the second row, my full tile is on the right. And then I'll get another tile, cut it to match whatever measurement that is on the left-hand side right there. And these tiles kind of, they're not snap in, but there's like a little groove that they sit in, and then there's a little lip that they kind of push into. So it's really easy to kind of maneuver these in place once they're on the wall, as long as they're obviously not wet and slippery and stuff, but they're pretty easy to kind of squeeze together. And I can't remember which way I put the bottom on this, but I remember thinking to myself, if the water is running from the top down, then make whatever seam is up, that would be the one where the water wouldn't kind of like seep into the seams. So I think I made it to where the little kind of notch that's sticking out goes up. That way when the other one sets in, the two sides kind of cover it. That way the water can't get in that groove that's right in there. But again, how you do this is kind of all your personal style. If you wanted to make this 3 tiles, you could have one in the middle and then 2 shorter on the outside and kind of alternate as you're going up. I didn't do that because I want as least waste as possible because these tiles are very expensive. I think it was 3 boxes for me to do this entire shower. And each box is like $75 or something like that. So it is quite expensive. And the trim kit on top of that was another 100. So it was all supplies, material, probably about $500 to tile this shower like this. And honestly, totally worth it for me because I think this is the best looking shower ever. I've done this several times. I pretty much do this in every camper because I just love the way it looks so much. And I also do want to stress, you're going to find a lot of different ways that people do this. And some of them are not wrong, but I think the only thing that I would say is wrong is, 1, using the wrong type of adhesive for this, and 2, not waterproofing before you put these tiles on. I've actually seen this on like TikTok and Instagram. There was an influencer that put these tiles on bare walls. And I'm over here like cringing because that's a water leak waiting to happen. Because if you know anything about campers, you know that you're supposed to have 2 lines of defense. So this has 2 lines of defense, and it has the plastic waterproofing behind it that's adhered to the wall. And then these tiles are waterproof. So that's 2. Just like any vent on a roof, they have butyl tape on them. And then you put self-leveling sealant on top of that. 2 layers of protection. And I will stress that every single time for every single renovation that you do. Always have 2 levels of protection for water. All right, so this back wall is almost done, which is great. It looks fantastic. Now I'm gonna pretty much decide what I want to do for this side. So I started out with a short piece on the left-hand side and then a longer piece on the right-hand side. And I thought I was going to like the way that this looked. And when I put it up there, I just didn't like how the corner looked because it just looked too long. Because I started my full side on the back on the left-hand side, if you remember. And it just looked weird with 2 shorthand pieces on the corner right there. And so I decided this is me thinking right here. If you ever want to know what my thinking face is, this is it. So I ended up taking these off because I didn't like the way it looked. And I switched it up a little bit. So I put the long piece on the left-hand side and the short piece on the right-hand side. And then I liked that a lot better. So then I could just basically build up my wall from that. And that made me a lot happier. So this is really going to be one of those things where you look at it. Of course, my wall is going to be a different size than your wall, so it may have looked good on your wall. It's really just your personal preference, but this is how I liked it. So this is what I did. So again, same thing with that construction adhesive. I'm just putting it on the back, using that trowel to kind of smooth it out, and going up step by step. And since this is a wall right there that kind of has an end, it's really easy for me to just mark and cut where the tile goes. Now, if you're curious how I cut these, I just use my table saw. I don't use anything crazy in particular. Table saw is super easy, works great, no jagged edges. Wouldn't suggest using a utility knife because it's plastic and it's kind of hard. Okay, so I'm coming up to my first spot where I need to cut a hole, and I just measured and then used a hole saw to cut this out. Little test fit right there, and it fits perfectly. So if you've ever watched me cut any type of hole in a wall panel, I use the same method. I take a vantage point, I measure up and I measure out, and then I just make an X and drill a hole. Nothing crazy about it. So I'm just going to keep building up the top of this wall, and then this next row, I believe I'm coming up to the shower head. So I'm going to do the same thing and cut a hole right there with the hole saw. This is a different size hole, so just make sure that you get as snug of a hole as possible because you don't want any water getting behind there. I will end up putting silicone there behind that just to make sure that no water gets behind that wall. Now, I did not mention this already, but I assume it's probably implied by now that when I put these tiles in, I'm sliding it inside that corner trim piece. That way all of your edges are nice and covered up. And it's a little difficult to kind of shimmy the pieces in when there's holes in it, but you just kind of have to work at it a little bit and get it just right. So after this piece is all shimmied in, then I can start working on the other side of the wall. And you see I have these pieces left over from the right side of the wall that I just did. So I'm actually going to reuse those. That way I don't waste as much tile. So I'm putting the shorter piece on the inside because I just have a long piece right there. It would look kind of weird if you had a long piece to a long piece. So I'm alternating this versus the other side. Again, you can do whatever you want to do. And this piece right here, since I have a full tile and I have the smaller tiles already, I'm just going to make this come all the way out because why not? Why would I cut the tile when I already could just bring it all the way out to the wall? So again, totally personal preference to you. If you want it shorter, then make it shorter. So this side's going to be super easy because all of the pieces are relatively pre-cut. I think I maybe had to cut 1 or 2 extra pieces because obviously you cut one side off that may not be the side that you need to make it fit. So anyway, I had to cut a couple extra pieces, but just working my way up. Same thing. I'm not too worried about that section right there on the end where there's no waterproofing because I am going to put a shower door here, and the shower door is actually going to end where that waterproofing is. So everything beyond that is pretty much just going to be decorative. It's not going to get wet. So I'm not too worried about it. So as you just watch me kind of move up the wall with these tiles, I do want to mention, you'll see that I pretty much smooth all of this out before I move to the next row. I do that because I want the construction adhesive to adhere really well to the wall. So if you see me kind of going back and smoothing things out, that's why. Because just because you set it up there, it doesn't mean that the construction adhesive is just going to magically just adhere to it. So I like that little extra level to kind of smooth things out. It also helps me make sure that the wall isn't kind of like leaning out or the tiles aren't coming off or anything else like that. I don't think the tiles would come off because I've put this in a lot of campers, and unless you do something seriously wrong and don't put construction adhesive on it, I don't see that happening. So after everything is smoothed out and we get this last row in, I am going to start working on the last top row because you see there's a little bit of section up there, and obviously that is too much for me to just cover up with trim. So I'm going to put another piece up there, and that one's a little bit tricky. We'll get to that in just a second. And then I'm going to add some trim pieces to each side to kind of give it a more finished look, because if you notice, all of the sides aren't completely even. So we want to make it look really nice and clean. All right, so using that same alternating style, I decided that my big tile needed to be on the left and the smaller one on the right. So I ripped tiles down with my table saw. The first one was too big. That's too big. So then I came back with a cut piece that was smaller. And these are a little tricky to get in because you kind of have to bow each of them out. You see how I pulled it up and bowed it out to snap it in, and then I got a screwdriver and kind of smushed it down. So I used the wall or the ceiling as like a leverage point to kind of smush it down into the other tile. So that's really the best way to do that, because remember, you have those 2 trim pieces on the side, and so that's why you have to kind of bow it up. Now this piece is easy. I can just snap it in like that and kind of angle it up towards the ceiling and push it down into the channel that is already engraved into the tile. Now after I have that piece in, I can kind of move it inwards into, you see that little trim piece? I'm trying to like scoot it into the trim piece. So sometimes if that doesn't work, you just have to mess with it. So you see right here, it didn't really work for me to do that because the channel was so tight. And so I put that one piece in on the right and then did the same thing. I kind of snapped it in place and then pushed it down with a screwdriver, and now I'm just smoothing out with my hand. And I forgot to mention this on the other two, but I did use construction adhesive on the back of this. So make sure to include that, because you definitely don't want these little pieces falling down. They wouldn't anyway, because there's going to be trim stapled into it, but I still like to use construction adhesive. So this spot, same thing. I put the first one in and kind of scooched it in towards that corner trim. And then I got the second one and kind of bent it in to snap the 2 side pieces, and then used a screwdriver to scooch it into that channel that was right there. Okay, so now that all of the main tile is up, we're going to start working on the side trim. This is a piece of, I think it's called J trim. It comes in the kit, and it just makes it look so nice and so finished right there against this wall. So I put silicone down first, just to kind of keep this piece of trim in place. And then I just scooched it in. I didn't staple it. I didn't do anything else. The silicone should hold it in. If you see right there, I'm putting silicone around the shower head and around the handle part. That's just to make sure it's completely waterproof, and then I can put the trim pieces on top of that. So there's like a little O spot, and then I can wrap Teflon around the shower head and screw the shower head on. And then the handle has a little trim ring that goes around it as well. And then I can put the handle on that. There's like a little screw on it. This is not typical for a camper, but I built this shower this way because I wanted it to be more like a home and less like a camper with the handheld. So that's why I built it that way. Yours probably won't be like that if it came from a factory. And last but not least, I'm going to put this side on. This is also a piece of that J trim. I did have to buy this separately. It did not come in the kit because I needed 2 separate pieces. Same thing, just some silicone and stuck it in. So that is it for day 19. I can't wait to see you guys back for day 20. Have a great afternoon.